Government agencies around the United States of America are warning that a violent summer is going to come to the USA. U.S. warns extremists may strike as the virus restrictions ease across the country. A national terrorism alert was issued just yesterday, warning that violent extremists may take advantage of the easing of pandemic restrictions across the United States in order to attack the government as a whole. The alert does not cite any specific threats, but it does warn of a potential danger, and we need to talk about why this is happening. It does warn of a potential danger from an increasingly complex, they say, and volatile mix that includes what they're warning, domestic attackers. So people who are born in the United States, your brothers and sisters are the ones that they're telling you to watch out for, inspired by various grievances, racial, ethnic hatred, and influences, they say, from across the world. Make sure that you subscribe to Full Spectrum Survival, and if you don't have the bell alert clicked, the little bell with vibrations, you're not going to get alerted every time a new video comes out. Those threats, they say, were made worse by government restrictions. Now remember, it was the United States government. It wasn't other countries of the world. Other countries said, yes, we're going to lock things down. No, you can't go to work. But yes, we're going to pay your daily bills. We're going to make sure that your power stays on. We're going to make sure that your rent gets paid. And we're going to make sure that you don't go without. The United States and a handful of other countries said, yes, we're going to lock you down. No, you can't go to work. And you are on your own. We're going to stop evictions, and we're going to make it so that if you weren't able to pay your bills, you might get a couple of dollars a day in stimulus money at the end of the year. But they didn't do what the other countries did. And because of that, an increase in hatred sentiment boiled up in the United States of America. And now government officials are warning that it may have gotten out of hand, that this sentiment against the United States and against the lockdown measures and what had happened may be in fact what is driving the want or the shift in anger toward governments across the country. Those threats, they say, were made worse by government restrictions that deepened anger at a local and federal official level all over the country, and the suffering of millions due to the economic shutdown and the spark that lit off this financial crisis. So they're warning now that as this crisis is going to last into the next 4 to 5 years, 2024, 2025, maybe beyond, where you're going to continue to see an increase in prices, you're going to see a decrease in availability, that there's going to be an increasing, a boiling over of angry sentiment toward the government and toward officials and toward any sort of measures that are seen as restrictive, especially with health officials saying that we're going to see waxing and waning restrictions across the world as the biological threat continues to come and go with the seasons. Non-government officials, the bulletin, it warns to, quote, look out for violent acts of an extreme nature. They may seek to exploit the easing of COVID-19 related restrictions across the United States to conduct these actions against a broader range of targets after previous public capacity limits reduced the opportunity, they say, for these attacks. Non-government officials warn that there is a sense of anxiety over domestic levels of operation, particularly those motivated by NGO hatred that has been building in the country for months, even under the previous administration, they say, with repeated warnings from DHS and the Justice Department saying that this is just the beginning. The actions that you saw in 2020 are just the beginning. Now remember, 2020 was a very dangerous and very volatile year where we saw actual riots take place across the country. We saw massive looting. We saw an increase in angry sentiment toward all of those against any sort of control measure. We saw never before seen firearms purchases. We saw a shift in people who said that, well, now they fear that they don't have enough ability to protect themselves, and they didn't feel like they could call on government officials. They couldn't call on the police department to help them out. And so now we're seeing this general shift in people who say, I'm going to stand for my own. I'm going to take care of myself. And what happens with that is the other side, the people who are taking advantage of crisis events, taking advantage of people being maybe scared or people being a little bit on edge. Those individuals are ready to attack. Concern over the domestic threat has to a certain degree, they say, eclipse the focus on foreign organizations. Now imagine that shift. So for years and years, you were told to fear the boogeyman from other countries. You were told to be afraid of that individual because of their nationality. And yet, isn't it funny how that's the very same government that's telling us not to judge based on, any sort of visual cues, and yet fear the boogeyman from those other countries. And you had TV shows and warnings and all these different things of these threats that could come at you. So now they're saying it has shifted. It is no longer a concern of foreign organizations. Now they say homegrown, domestic, brothers and sisters are the threat. Concern over the domestic threat has eclipsed it, they say. Adding to the mix are adversaries such as Russia, China, and Iran, which the alert says are amplifying any sort of call to action by people within the United States of America. Today's threat landscape, this is the DHS secretary in releasing the bulletin. Today's threat landscape is more complex, more dynamic, more diversified than it was several years ago. The new alert expires, they say, in August. The National Bulletin issued a January warning of the lingering threat of violence from people motivated by what happened during the election process. That sentiment, they say, is still present, with the latest alert noting online calls for violence. Now, this isn't bogus, because we run sentiment analysis ourselves using programs that we have written ourselves in-house, and this sentiment analysis runs on Twitter, Facebook, even things like Instagram, other platforms, and we are seeing these calls. So it's real. I mean, it's not just completely bogus looking for a reason to call, a warning, a new boogeyman. We are seeing individuals who are calling for action, and this action has to keep you and your family on your toes. You have to remain aware at all times, because it could happen at any time that any one individual, any group of individuals, their own personal line in the sand has been crossed, or they have suffered all of the suffering that they are willing to, or their economic situation is so bad that there is nowhere positive in their life, and so they act out in a violent manner. And that's when you need your tools for security. You need your personal awareness, your situational awareness. You need your family to be on top of things. When you go into Walmart and you are walking down the aisle, well, when somebody's looking for that one in particular item, where are the other 8 eyes of your family members? Where are they at? Where are they looking? Are they looking up and down the aisle, or are they watching the guy up there? Did they hear somebody yell or scream? And so they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to go look at what this is, or let's move to the back of the store where the fire exit is. Have that awareness so that you know that you're not going to get into the choke points. You're not going to get into the problem areas that other people who aren't aware of their environment, aren't aware of their surroundings, are going to definitely get into. The DHS and FBI are providing guidance to local and state officials in how to deal with this threat. And you can go ahead and take some ideas for yourself what you think that guidance might be. DHS has also established a new domestic branch. So this tells you that there is a complete shift in their idea of who the enemy is within its Office of Intelligence and Analysis, and has directed state and local government officials to deal with those branch threats. Police departments in large cities across the USA are reported to be increasing their patrols and implementing new tactics to prepare for what they are calling a violent summer that is on its way. Shootings and homicides in big U.S. cities are up this year after rising last year. In the last 3 months of 2020, homicides rose 32%. So this is not a negligible number. This is something that we do need to take note of this on a personal level, that if people are acting on the violent tendencies that they have, well, we need to do everything we can to make sure that that action doesn't come to our families and our houses. In cities with populations of at least 1 million, so that's another idea, and you see people rushing out of those big cities because they are just, they are fires just waiting to happen. The Jersey City Police Department is increasing its deployment of officers and foot patrols in high crime areas. In Dallas, the city's violent crime reduction plan includes provisions for the deployment of officers, expecting hotspots, they say. Gang activity is accounted for about half of the violence in the city. And that's something you're going to see. It happened with every economic crisis. People look for, where can I get ahead? And sometimes that getting ahead is in the form of an organized crime or organized gang. And gang, remember, is just an organization. And so they look for those organizations that are going to provide them the security and the stability that they can't get otherwise, even if that security and stability comes at your cost, or the cost of what is normally upheld as morally correct and morally right. So you need to remember that that happens with every financial crisis. Gangs increase. Look at the mob days and the mob movies. Those were all surrounding financial hardships and times. And we are still seeing that right now. People are gravitating toward organized groups that don't have the same morality as you and me, and don't have the same wish not to do anyone harm as you and me. And they are, quote unquote, gonna get theirs. They're going to get theirs one way or the other. It's called hook or crook. And if you look it up, you'll see exactly what that means. Hook or crook. They're going to get it one way or the other. This is happening not just in the big cities, but it's happening in rural areas too. The report suggests that as Americans are shifting their new reality, they're experiencing this new world right now that maybe major media outlets say it's all great, but they're looking around, they're saying, well, if it's all great, then why is my brother suffering? Why is my sister still unable to get a living wage? Why are people still having these problems? Why is there still this action taking place? They are seeing through the lies of media now. And they're saying, no, I don't believe you anymore. I don't believe what you have to say. CNN, Fox News, CBS, whoever it is, they know that it's all driven with an agenda that is all meant to divide and conquer and divide the populace. And so a lot of people are waking up and they're saying, you know what? I don't believe you. Show me how it works. Show me. Don't just tell me that it's happening. Show me that it's happening. And because of that, their entire sentiment toward truth is changing. And now they don't want to be told how it is. They want to see it. If you tell me the economy is better, I want to see it better in my brother and sister's lives. If you tell me that this is happening for the betterment of the populace, I want to see it actually happening, not just because you say it is. And a lot of times that calling to the carpet comes with anger when they're shown that what they're being told is a lie. And when that happens, that might be their own line in the sand, and you have to get ready just for that. Remember, sentiment is changing. Retail sales were flat in April as stimulus spending waned. Retail sales in the USA continued to flatten after soaring in March when people received their stimulus. Shock and awe, right? Big surprise. People received money from the government. They spent it right back like they were supposed to into the system. The government gets the money at the end of the day. The report Friday from the U.S. Commerce Department was worse than the 0.8 rise that Wall Street expected, but it wasn't, they say, as bad as it could have been. The question is whether consumers will continue to spend without stimulus checks. They won't, or that if they do, it will be shifted from what it used to be. It's not the big services, spend on lavish vacations. Let's not put everything on credit because I know my job is stable and I'm going to be able to pay it off next month. Those days are completely over. And so people are saying, I don't trust that I'm going to have my job next month, and I'm not putting that $4,000 vacation on credit, hoping that I'll be able to pay it off over the next 6 to 8 months. No, I'm going to hold on to that money and I'm going to buy more food. I'm going to get my kids clothes. I'm going to do all these other things. So there will still be some spending, but the entire industry is thrown on its head. The April retail sales tipped the odds towards slower times in the coming month. That's an analyst at Contingent Macro Advisors. Friday's report comes amid other signs that the economy is changing. On Thursday, different things took place across the U.S. CDC. Consumer spending, which makes up for 2/3 of all economic activity, is closely monitored by economists, and they say it gauges the nation's economic health. What they're showing right now is that it's a changing scene. And you and your family need to get ready for that change to continue. When confidence in the market, confidence in a person's ability to hold a job, confidence in government, where that all shifts toward the negative. And when that happens, your world can become chaotic. Guys, please get ready to the degree that each and every one of you can. If you're blessed for being here, please leave a comment, any single comment down in the comment box, even if it's just a hi, like what you do here. I see this happening in my city. But especially if you see somebody talking in the comments and you have something to add, go and add that, because YouTube sees that and they shoot the channel out further because they show that people are engaging with each other, and so it must be good for them. So let's take advantage of that, and let's make sure that we help other people and reach new people so that we can help them. From my family to yours, please stay safe, remain vigilant, and keep watch. This week's Full Spectrum News is brought to us by you for being here, our Patreon members. Thank you guys for everything you do to support my family and to make this entire outreach possible. Make sure that you visit usaberkeyfilters.com and use the code FSS10. You'll get 10% off of your order. And the Thrive Life freeze-dried food link down in the description box, you're going to get 15% off. The food is good for 25 years, so it really adds to your pantry. Please, everyone, watch what is happening in the world and stay safe.